Okay, so as Troy said, this is a doozy. The conversation surrounding toxic fandom, what causes it, and how we can fix it has reemerged. So we've asked you guys to define what you consider toxic fandom to be, what causes it, and then posit us a possible solution. So let's see what you said. Gavin says, when your own fandom is so personally defined that anyone who doesn't share your very particular points of view become the target of mockery, ridicule, and sometimes even threats of violence.
I think that's all encompassing, actually. I was actually impressed with that description.
That's a very solid definition. I'm behind that as well. Darth John Fett says toxic fandom is too much one-line opinions and not enough book reading, comic book reading in his case.
You know what? Yes. Actually, that's an even better definition. I love that one, actually.
Calvin says toxic fandom is a term made up by people who can't handle criticism.
Calvin.
I think he's onto something there, but I think he's got it in the wrong order.
I think. Well, what do you mean by that? Where do you think?
I don't know that the people who can't handle criticism are the ones that have selected toxic fandom, have selected that term as a definer. But toxic fandom is the people that can't handle criticism. I think that term came from someone else.
Okay, interesting. All right, what else we got?
Jason says, I know what causes it, a collection of people who need to get a life.
I also think that's very accurate, so I'm not going to knock that. Also, shout out for that SNL callback from the 90s of William Shatner on Saturday Night Live.
Jimmy says, be a chaperone, not a gatekeeper. This is the most important rule in fandom.
Yeah. I love that, actually. That's perfect.
Steve says the causes of toxic fandom are toxic people.
Respect. You know, like we got a lot of answers. And I think for the most part, a lot of them were actually kind of on the money. The ones that I'll be honest with you, the ones I didn't include is where people start targeting specific groups, just because I don't think that's very useful. Like, you know, I mean, I saw some people who were like, oh, you know, it's the SJWs, right? And I'm like, okay, I roll. And then, but I also saw that people were like, oh, it's the Comicsgate people. And it's like, all right, I mean, sure, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like, I just didn't want to make this about finger pointing just because, like, I don't think it's very useful. And I do think there's definitely a lot of blame to go around. So, you know, but I'm going to ask you, Ashton, like, you know, because ultimately everybody gave us a definition, but nobody said, how can you fix it? So I'm curious. Well, not a lot of people did. So I'm curious, how do you fix toxic fandom? Is it fixable? Like, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's such a big question.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a pessimist, but I don't know that there is a solution, as bad as that sounds, because as one of our commenters pointed out, toxic fandom is kind of largely born out of internet culture, and like as long as that is so prevalent and we exist in this world where everyone has a voice and they can just yell into the void, there's kind of no real way around it. I mean, on a personal level, as somebody that enjoys a certain fandom or a certain topic, you can make a choice to realize those things don't define your interaction or enjoyment with a particular thing, but I don't know that there's a way to stop it.
Yeah, no, I totally feel like you know, I am guilty of engaging in, I guess, I think perceived toxicity. Like, I think that I have a limit in terms of like what I'm willing to like die on a hill about, how long I'm willing to argue with people. But I would say, like, you know, I'm always game for a Marvel versus DC argument. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, I don't care how stupid it is. Like, I'm going to throw my full weight behind that argument. You know, and it's just, but I think it's because, but it's also a line when it stops becoming fun, which can happen very quickly. But I think, to your point, I just don't think there's anything that you can really do about it. And also, to your point, or maybe, I mean, it's maybe a counter, but I think that there's a way to, there's some levels to unpack this. Like you said, it was born out of internet culture. And I think there is some truth to that. But I've also seen people make the argument that like, oh, there's always been a toxic fandom, and of course, and like, of course there have. Like we've, I remember like reading, like as a kid, reading about like, creators getting death threats because they killed off Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's girlfriend, back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, I know that the guy who played Jar Jar Binks like has said numerous times that his life was kind of like ruined by that character. It's one of those things where it sucks and it's wildly inappropriate and it should never come to that. Like, I want to be very clear about that. But at the same time, there's, how do you monitor people? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just like there's a point where, I don't know. I think there's a point ultimately where I guess our responsibility as and I'm just talking about you or me, but our responsibility as fans is to recognize a toxic conversation and not give it air. Like, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And then just walk away from it. Like, I think that that's like the best thing you can do, because to that person's point earlier, toxic people cause toxic fandom. And those are deeper issues that no internet conversation, most internet conversations, are not going to fix anything.
It's not going to be productive. And that's kind of like probably the best way to approach it is like, there's no surefire way to like, wrangle up everybody and say, just don't do that. Like, that's not realistic.
No.
So I think, you've got, like you said, you've got to realize like, what are the hill? First of all, what is the hill worth dying on? Second of all, are you talking to someone that's willing to have a productive conversation, or are they listening to reply?
Yeah.
And
that is great. I love that. Yeah. That's like, I've never heard that before. That's excellent. Yeah.
You need to know like kind of when to see yourself out, and you need to know like when it honestly, like, as unfortunate as it really is, like if you have all of these other people causing issues, it kind of falls on you as a fan or consumer to mitigate the impacts on yourself and know like, I like this thing, this is a thing that I'm interested in, whatever, and engaging with these people that are being frankly abusive about it is going to ruin it for me. So I need to know that it's not worth my time. And that's a hard balance to strike. It is.
And I mean, I get the knee-jerk reaction to want to defend something that you love or something that you're passionate about. But yeah, I think that, you kind of have to like look at the situation and be like, this isn't going to go anywhere. And you know what? Sometimes it happens after you've already replied. Like, I'm guilty of that.
So am
I. Like, I've already replied, and now like that snowball effect is just happening.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to like, you can like, once they start like yelling back at you, you just kind of have to be like, you know what? I'm just going to log off of whatever, So I get that. I was going to ask you what was the worst fandom, but I don't even want to do that. Like, I got to be real with you. I
want to hear this. Inquiring minds want to know.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what, Johnny? I'm gonna put you in the hot seat first. What's the worst? Right. What's the worst fandom according to you?
Star Wars.
This is said that like Star Wars fans are the worst, and I consider myself in that category. And I think there's an important distinction to be made here, right? Because Star Wars is so popular and it's such a giant part of like the American pop cultural landscape that you need to make the distinction between like these people that like casually know something about Star Wars and can tell you like X, Y, and Z general things about Star Wars, and like the really into it Star Wars people that want to like fact check you on the tiniest things. Those people are the worst. The people that are just like, yeah, Luke and Leia are related, they're fine, go about your business.
Like honestly, I used to be a much bigger Star Wars fan, and like just the way the fandom has reacted over the last couple of movies, and I'm not counting The Mandalorian because like everyone seems to love that, and Baby Yoda, Grogu, whatever, is just the bee's knees. God, I feel old by saying that.
That was
it's just
yikes, Johnny.
Hearing just the stories of, like you said, like the actor played Jar Jar Binks and Maud Best, and like how people were giving him death threats, and even in like the more recent movies, Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose, was just such like bullied and whatnot. So it's only until like recent when she's now gotten like a lead role in Disney's like Raya and the Last Dragon, they've Like she's able to she's able to like kind of come back out of this now, but it's like, not after having to go through like the living hell that Star Wars fans put her through. So I think like I'm even wearing a Star Wars shirt, and I just feel like I'm betrayed my fandom. So I don't, I like it, but I don't like it. But it's just like, it's the same reason why I don't like generally like organized sports. It's like the over analysis of stuff as well. It's like, I can enjoy watching like the Ravens or the Orioles play, but it's when everyone's like, oh, Joe Flacco was 5 for 8 when he's on the 30-yard line and the duck farts on Utah Street and it's coming from the Southwest. I don't care.
It's me. That's me. You're talking about me. The annoying Star Wars fan and the annoying football fan.
It's like, Ashton's both of these things combined.
I don't care about your annoying little stupid statistics about every single little thing. Just like let people enjoy things for the sake of enjoyment.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not gonna get like on anyone's. Well, maybe I personally don't like it. If someone wants to enjoy that, like that level of detail analysis, that's fine. But I feel like some of the toxicity also comes to kind of bring it back around, is when you get clashing groups of fandoms who like a thing, but they have different levels of expertise and knowledge about the thing. Definitely. Like, well, you don't like, you're not a true fan unless you know X, Y, Z, and this and this and this and this and this.
Like purity tests.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. I think, it's interesting. I think the Mandalorian and sequel trilogy, the reactions to those two things is also kind of interesting. And I think it's interesting in that, on one hand, I actually understand and support kind of the argument that, like, some of the ways that the people who were responsible for that sequel trilogy, and I'm not talking about all of them, right? But some of the ways that people like the way that the sequel trilogy was handled, the way that certain directors handled dealing with the fans, that didn't help. That actually only helped fuel the flames.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people love to reference power dynamics, when they're talking about online bullying or people bullying people online or whatever. And I kind of have these moments sometimes where I'm like, okay, from the fans, I'm like, all right, guys, y'all need to chill. It's just Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I like kind of looks at sometimes the people who are responsible for this product, and I'm kind of like, you're the producer, you're the director, like you're the writer, you're the star, like you have all the power in this dynamic, like, you know what I mean? And I'm just sort of like, you need to chill out too. Like you should actually be more aware of and maybe a little less sensitive to what people are saying about you online. Yeah. So I mean, I definitely see it both ways. And that's always kind of like where I have this tug of war about these things, where it's just sort of like, yeah, like I see toxic behavior from fans, but I also think that, these professional creatives should be a little smarter than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think to your point, yes, this is birthed out of internet culture, but it's also something that's been going on for decades.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's exacerbated by internet culture. I don't think it's necessarily birthed out of it.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right about that. I think that, like, we've talked about the hot takes and, like, the garbage takes and all that other stuff. And I totally agree with you on that. So I get that 100%.
I want to add something to what you're just saying, because there was a comment in our chat that actually kind of goes along with what you're saying in a sense. Jeff Studer says, there's no toxic fandom. There are toxic creatives and corporations who don't care.
I feel about that. Like, I think you're onto something in that toxic creatives and corporations are certainly feeding into that. You're getting a lot of free publicity out of it, but there's a lot of it is falling on fans. They're the ones that are starting it and feeding into it the most. So there needs to be, you need to be realistic about where the blame falls, and it's not just on creators and corporations. Like Tumblr is a trash site, Twitter is a trash site, and people are all yelling into the void there. And those aren't directors and actors; it's fans. And like Troy and I both said, we're guilty of it. So we're not sitting on a throne saying all of this, but you need to be realistic about the blame.
Yeah. I get that. I respect that. I understand that.
Don't forget that you can catch Previews World Weekly streaming live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific at Previews World on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.